Welcome back to Echoes of History. Tonight, let us drift together into the cobblestone heart of a medieval town, where time moves not with the ticking of clocks, but with the rising and falling of church bells and the steady rhythm of feet across worn stones. Imagine, if you will, the cool dampness of early dawn, when the mist still lingers low against timber-framed houses, their upper stories leaning gently toward one another as though sharing whispered secrets above the narrow lanes below. The scent of wood smoke curls in the air, mixing with the earthy fragrance of damp hay and freshly turned soil carried in from the fields. The town is just beginning to stir. A baker, his hands already white with flour, tends to the great brick oven that glows faintly in the half-light. He stokes the embers, coaxing life from the coals that never fully die, and sets about shaping loaves with practiced care. The sound of his wooden peel sliding against stone echoes softly down the lane, mingling with the distant clop of hooves as a farmer arrives with a small cart of eggs and butter to trade. His breath rises in pale clouds as he speaks in a hushed voice to the baker's boy, who will carry the goods inside. Elsewhere, a narrow window creaks open, and a woman leans out to shake dust from a woolen blanket. She watches the slow awakening of the town, her hair tied loosely in a kerchief, the scent of drying herbs clinging to her sleeves. Below, a stray cat wins its way along the street, pausing now and again to sniff at the remnants of yesterday's market. The paving stones are still damp from last night's rain, and in their dark sheen the first glimmers of sunrise flicker like quiet lanterns. As the morning grows, shutters creak open one by one. A child's laugh rings out, shrill and fleeting, as two youngsters chase each other with sticks, pretending at knights and dragons. Their mothers call to them in gentle warning, reminding them not to stray too far. Market stalls will soon be set up, and the lanes will grow busy with people. Already, a merchant arranges bolts of fabric in muted shades of russet and green, smoothing them with his palms to catch the light. The cloth carries with it the faint scent of distant ports, of salt air and long voyages, though those who handle it here know only its warmth and weight. A cooper works steadily in the corner of the square, tightening the iron hoops of a barrel with measured taps of his mallet. Each strike carries a muffled echo, blending with the creak of wooden wheels as another cart makes its way slowly over the uneven stones. The air fills with a soft, growing murmur, voices low and unhurried, punctuated by the bleating of goats tethered near a stall and the occasional bark of a dog guiding its master's flock. Inside the small houses, the rhythm of daily chores begins. The hearth is swept, ashes carried out in clay parts, and parts of porridge stirred with slow wooden spoons. Of barley, oats, and honey drifts outward, mingling with the sharper tang of smoked fish hung high in the rafters. A young boy feeds kindling into the fire, watching with wide eyes as the flames leap higher, painting the rough walls in wavering light. His grandmother hums softly nearby, her song little more than a thread of memory winding through the air, half prayer, half lullaby. And so the town breathes into life, not with haste, but with a steady, enduring rhythm. Every sound, every movement, every detail belongs to a cycle repeated countless times before. The cobbler sets out his tools by the open door, the blacksmith's hammer waits to strike its first blow of the day, and the church bell, still silent, holds within it the promise of hours yet to unfold. Through it all, there is a gentleness, as though the town itself has learned the art of patience. The air is thick with the smell of wet timber and straw, of yeast and smoke, of damp stone and warm bread. A sparrow, along a low wall, tilting its head at the bustle below, before darting upward to perch on the eaves. The day stretches slowly, like a woven cloth being drawn taut across a loom, each thread a life, each color a story. And so, within these narrow lanes and crooked houses, life flows unceasing, quiet yet filled with detail. each moment blending softly into the next. A thread loosens from the woven cloth, and another slips gently into its place, and the day, unhurried, can... Market Square gathers its own small weather, a hush of breath and murmurs that drift like mist, folding around the stalls. Linen stretches on a line between two houses, lifted and lowered by the faintest breeze. Its damp weight breathes a coolness into the lane. In the gutters, a ribbon of last night's rain trickles along, carrying a stray petal, a curled leaf, a fragment of straw, the little tokens of a town that has already lived through so many mornings that it no longer needs to enact them. At the bakery doorway, heat blooms softly into the street. Loaves develop their brown, gentle crusts, a slow transformation watched by the baker's daughter, who traces a finger along the flour dust on the sill and leaves behind a bright line. She pauses to listen to the sound from the abbey on the hill, the monks at their prayers, a murmur like bees within stone, then returns to her task, dusting the tops of the loaves with a patient hand. Her mother checks the rise of the dough set aside for the midday batch, nods to herself, and marks the skin with a practiced slash that will guide the bread as it swells. Across the way, a weaver spreads out his morning's threadwork on a frame beneath a lean-to. The threads are soft earth, faded moss, washed sky, the colors of fields and hedgerows after rain. He runs the comb along them with a sound like rain on a wooden roof. Two boys, sent to fetch a bundle of kindling, pause to watch the weaver's shuttle move, left, right, rhythm that feels older than the lane. One boy copies the motion with his hand, mouth slightly open, and then, remembering the errand, they hurry on, their shoes kissing the stones with quick, shy taps. Near the well, a cluster of women gather with lidded pails and a quiet patience. The oldest lets the rope slide through her palm in slow increments, the fibers softened by years of water and weather. A bucket descends into the cool dark, the sound of it meeting water a hollow greeting from below. When it rises, the surface trembles like a small lake in miniature, then steadies. A little girl peers in, eyes wide, as if she might see a fish or a star at the bottom. The well's stone rim gives back the chill of the morning. Palms rest there, brief, before returning to handles, to lids, to the reassuring heft of a day's beginnings. The bell rings prime from the church, one clear wave through damp air. It touches the blacksmith's yard where the day's first hammering begins. Measured. Blows not fierce, each one set down with the same careful distance as steps taken on a steep path. Sparks lift and fall like fireflies briefly startled into being. The smith's apprentice holds the glowing iron with tongs that have their own history of scorch and polish. He counts under his breath, not numbers but the shapes of blows, flat, edge, round, naming them as familiar companions. A dog, old and speckled, sleeps against the wall, one ear flicking now and then at the sound. If one follows the slope of the street toward the river, the day softens further. The tannery, a little farther off, keeps its odors to itself, and the air near the water smells of wet stone and reeds. A mill wheel turns with a low wooden sigh, its paddles darkened by years of flow, each blade lifting and setting down the river in a long, even breath. The miller's son scatters grain to hens that pick and murmur, bead-bright eyes following his hand. He lifts a sack that is too heavy. Him, not with bravado, but with steady persistence, shifting the weight to his hip the way he has watched his father do, until the sack agrees to be carried. At the edge of town, gardens crouch behind wattle fences like small green rooms. Beans climb, leeks stand quiet with their blue leaves gathered like folded wings, and a narrow bed of thyme releases its scent when brushed by a sleeve. A woman bends among the rows, her skirt damp at the hem, fingers stained with earth. She turns, with the tip of a wooden tool, considering the soil the way a reader pauses over a line of text, seeking what it says beyond the words. A pair of sparrows barb nearby, fearless and intent on their own foraging, each seed a small victory. Within the houses, morning deepens into a slow noon. A scribe in a room above the apothecary's shop opens his shutters wider to catch the grey light. He rubs an ink stick on a stone with a few drops of water until the gloss darkens. Goose. Small thicket in a pot. He selects one, trims it with a knife whose edge he keeps for this alone. The page before him holds an illumination, a vine that has crept around the first letter of a psalm, the vine's leaves set with careful veins. He breathes lightly so as not to disturb the fine hairs of the brush and adds a dot of red no bigger than a seed. Outside, footsteps pass, and he allows the sound to move through the room like a gust that stirs nothing, then settles again. Down. Apothecary measures dried chamomile into a scale, tiny brass plates perfectly still. He speaks softly to a woman with tired eyes who holds a sleeping infant against her shoulder, the baby's breath a faint warmth on her neck. She will steep the flowers, he tells her, with a leaf of lemon balm if she has it, and a poem's length of time is enough to let it rest. She smiles at the measure, grateful for a prescription that does not require the counting of minutes. He wraps the herbs in paper, them with twine, and tucks in a sprig of mint, because kindness, like a herb, sometimes works best when it arrives without announcement. Back at the market, a traveling peddler has unfolded his pack. The town knows him by the slight limp in his right leg and the ribbon he ties around his hat in different colors for different seasons. Today the ribbon is a washed blue, and on his cloth he has laid out a scatter of marvels. A tiny mirror with a crack like lightning, a box with a lid that wooden sigh when it closes, a small comb carved with two birds who seem to be listening to one another. He does not press, he waits. A boy spends a long time looking at the mirror, opens his mouth as if to say a thing to his own reflection, then thinks better of it and runs off with his thoughts, which seem suddenly fast and secret. The rhythm of labor continues around the square. A cooper has finished one barrel and begins another, the staves leaning against a post like a circle of pay. Elders. The shoemaker lifts a shoe to the light to check a seam and nods to himself, satisfied without surprise. A fishmonger arranges river fish on wet leaves. He dips his hand in a bucket and flicks water across them so their scales keep their clean, quick shimmer. The cat from the linen window earlier has found this display and sits at a respectful distance, not begging, only attending, as if the sight itself were a kind of nourishment. Noon draws near. The bell notes it with and a hush passes through the square that isn't silence so much as a loosening. People retreat to doorways and benches, to thresholds that belong to them. A cloth is spread upon a low table, bowls are set out. Bread is broken not with flourish, but as a matter of course. Steam lifts from a pot of cabbage and barley, gentle and homely, a little cloud that smells of earth and comfort. The baker's daughter carries a loaf across the street. On the way she shares a heel with the dog from the smith, who accepts it with slow joy, as if remembering that such goodness happens every day and is still worth the whole of his attention. In the shade of the church porch, a scattering of children work their way through letters. The parish clerk traces a shape on a slate, and they echo it, some with crisp lines, others with hesitant curls. The rain of last night has left the world rinsed and thoughtful, and the stone beneath their feet holds a coolness that keeps them awake in a gentle way. A boy trades his place on the bench for a moment to watch a beetle crossing the threshold stone, a tiny pilgrim with a shining shell. After a time he returns to his letter, bringing the beetle's steady purpose with him. Farther down, a woman mends a torn sleeve for an old man whose hands are still marked by a long trade he no longer practices. She pulls the needle through with a motion that does not need sight to be precise. He speaks a little, not of what was once, but of the weather that is. Way rain makes the wood swell, and the doors sit tighter in their frames. She nods and snips the thread. The sleeve is good again in the way that something is good when it has not been hidden but made sound with care. In the afternoon, the river brightens a shade lighter, though the sky remains a pale cloth drawn evenly across the town. Laundry, hung earlier, has almost dried, its edges just faintly cool where the last of the damp holds on. A girl runs her hand along a shirt and shakes her head. Another hour. Then laughs at herself because time moves whether she asks it to or not. She climbs the wooden stairs to the loft room where Sage hangs from a beam and sets a cup of broth on the sill for her grandfather. He warms his hands around it, looking out over the curve of the rooftops, their tiles slick and dark as river stones, and he hums an old tune that has the shape of walking home. The rope maker, who works in the long alley no cart can enter, has begun a new length. Fibers at the far end and walks backward, turning the handle that twists them together. The rope takes form under his hands as if it had been there all along, and he is only coaxing it out of the air. A boy passes, offers to turn the handle while the rope maker checks the tension, and the boy, proud and careful, keeps the handle steady with both hands, heels braced against the cobble. When it is time to finish, the rope maker ties off the end and strokes the length once, not to admire but say quietly that this is good work and will hold. Toward the abbey the orchard shines with its very own grey light. Apples lie where they have fallen, their skins dulled, their sweetness tucked away against bruises. A lay brother gathers them, placing each fruit gently in a basket lined with straw. His hands are nicked and stained by sap. He does not mind. Near the wall a beehive hums like a lived-in room. The bees move without hurry, which does not mean they move slowly. They are busy in a way that does not call attention to itself, like the rest of the town. The brother lifts the edge of a cloth to look in, and a soft, deep sound greets him, as much welcome as warning, and he lowers the cloth again with a nod. In a courtyard behind a carpenter's workshop, wood shavings curl on the ground like pale petals. The carpenter is smoothing a bench for a newlywed couple, though the bench itself will never think of marriage. It will think of sitting, of bread placed on it. There's too much for the table, of a child climbing up to see what is going on. He runs his hand along the wood and feels the grain a little like memory under his palm. A wren slips through, regards the curls of wood as possible homes, and vanishes. The carpenter smiles, knowing that by evening the shavings will have drifted to the corners, and in the morning they will have become part of whatever the broom gathers into the quiet pile that waits by the door, on the lane that falls away toward the fields. A hedger swings his billhook in a patient arc, laying the hazel stems at an angle so they will grow into a woven wall. His dog, younger than the smith's, trots the boundary, vigilant without reason. A woman carrying a basket of onions passes him, and they exchange a greeting the way neighboring streams tip their waters into each other, easily without ceremony. At her house, she will plait the onions into braids that whisper against each other when lifted, and hang them for their papery skins sighing softly as the air moves through. Mid-afternoon, and the cobbler's shop smells of leather warmed by hands. He has finished a pair of children's shoes, the stitches neat, the soles sturdy. He taps them on the bench as if to wake them, then wraps them in linen. A mother, whose day is a braid of errands and small kindnesses, accepts the parcel and tucks it into her basket beside a wedge of cheese and a cabbage. On her way home, she stops at the well to set the basket down, stretches her shoulders, and listens to the low music of the town moving around her. The basket, for a moment, is heavier than usual, but it is a weight she trusts. When she lifts it again, she notices that a feather has stuck to the cabbage and leaves it there. It looks, she thinks, like a small, ridiculous hat, and the thought makes her smile without an audience. A shower passes that is hardly a shower, more a soft rehearsal of rain. The rats of the roof, those ancient gutters, receive it with ease, and the stones are darkened again, their colors deepening to a quiet richness that suits them. A boy sets a small toy boat into the runoff. It noses along the curb with courtly dignity until it encounters a twig, negotiates, and moves on, earning the boy's quiet satisfaction. He does not shout. He walks beside it with his hands in his sleeves as though escorting a guest. When the water thins, he rescues the boat and sets it to dry beneath a bench, having learned something. Current and luck, and the importance of letting go soon enough. In the apothecary's window, jars catch the flat light. Crushed rosehip, fennel seed, horehound, dried violet. He has added a single plum, not for sale but for beauty, because the color pleases him, and because sometimes one needs to set a thing in a place for no reason but that it makes the day sit right. The scribe upstairs, work finished for now, closes his ink and warms his hands at a small brazier. Thing. Has completed but of the citrus he once smelled in a port 2 weeks' walk away, how it was like sunshine folded into a peel. He will not see such fruit again for a long time, and it does not matter. The memory is ripe enough to share the room with him. The light begins to thin, not in defeat but in fulfillment, as if it has given all it had and is content to retire. In the butcher's stall, the day's last cuts are wrapped. In the fabric booth, the merchant lays a cloth across his good. Tenderly, as if he were tucking in a child, the cooper carries his barrel a little way into shade to let the wood rest. People drift homeward, the market shedding its noise like a coat. The church bell notes the hour again, and the sound stitches together every threshold and courtyard and loft where the day will be laid down, smooth and simple. Smoke lifts from chimneys in threads. Supper smells of garlic softened in butter, of lentils giving up their own modest sweetness, of herbs bruised. Between finger and thumb, the baker slides his last loaves onto the shelf. A single heel is set aside, as always, for the widow on the corner with the lemon tree in a wooden tub. She waters it with such care that the leaves shine even in poor light, and sometimes a child passes and tells the tree a secret, which the tree keeps perfectly. In the tavern, the lute player plucks a line that is as soft as the weather. People drink in the quiet way of those who have worked and will again. A story. Begins somewhere, not about kings, but about a lost glove found at dusk, and the hand that claimed it, about a path that seemed shorter in the rain, about a jar of honey that had buried itself in the back of a shelf and was discovered just when it was needed to soothe a cough. Laughter rises like steam and fades without leaving a mark on the air. A candle gutters, then steadies, and someone reaches to trim it. The wick is saved, to be used again to start a better flame. Night comes like a tie. The sky darkens from pewter to ink, and window by window the town lights itself. A mother braids her daughter's hair by the hearth, fingers moving in a rhythm that is less a technique than a kindness extended to the future. The father rewinds a cord on a peg, checks a latch, stands for a moment at the threshold to hear the night animals whisper at the edge of the fields. In the loft, a boy sets his toy boat upon a chest and tells it quietly that tomorrow the streams will be different. We'll learn them together. Near the river, the mill wheel keeps turning, slower now, the water making the same old promises it has always made and kept. A lantern glows in the window of the miller's house, its light the color of honey thinned with hot water. A cat curls upon a sack, tail over nose, and dreams of fish it has studied all day without malice. The town seems to listen to its own breathing, the soft in, the softer out, the way stone itself seems to sleep while holding everything. Has learned. In the orchard, the beehive hum falls to a contented murmur. A bat makes a single pass across the fruit and vanishes in the crease between branches and sky. The lay brother rolls his shoulders, lays down the basket of apples, and sits upon the low wall to look at nothing, which is to say, to look at everything at once in the way one does at the end of a day that asked only what he could give and was satisfied with exactly that. He touches the roughness of the wall with his fingertips, the texture entering his palms like a prayer answered not with words but with rest. From the church, Compline drifts outward, a woven line of human breath traveling through air that has always carried such sounds. It passes the shuttered stalls, the barrels with their iron hoops, the rope coiled by the alley door, the shoes waiting to be claimed in the morning, the jars in the apothecary's window, the cloth spread over the merchant's goods, the bench whose surface still smells faintly of sap and sunlight. It passes the well, where a last bucket creaks over the stone rim, and it slides along the lanes, which remember feet the way a field remembers rain. In beds narrow and wide, under blankets that smell of time and sun and smoke, the town settles. A slip of moon leans on the roofline, then lets go. A child studies the ceiling and adds the day to the stack inside his head where days live, each with its own small weight, none of them heavy. A woman counts her mind as she falls towards sleep, each number taking a hand lightly and then moving on. A man lies on his side and watches the square of window darken, knowing without needing to be told that the blacksmith's dog will turn once more in his sleep and sigh. And beneath all of it, like the river under the wheel, tomorrow begins almost secretly. Bread will rise. The rope will lengthen. The ink will darken. The garden will hold its due the way a breath holds a note just long. Remembered, a cart will come in from the fields with cabbages nested as if the earth itself had taught them how to fit against one another. A bucket will return from the well with stories on its rim that no one will hear but everyone will understand. The market's weather will gather again, a low, bright hush. For now, the rain begins up there in the dark, more by scent than sound, a coolness on the air that promises the softest kind of company. When it falls, it is the old rain, the same rain. Lace drawn over roofs and branches, over the river's back, over the lanes. It lays hands on wood and stone the way a mother lays a hand on a sleeping child's brow, not to wake, only to know. In that welcome patter, the town's dreams step out from the corners and make their slow circuits. The cat's silver fish, the scribe's summer fruit, the apothecary's garden unbound, the shoemaker's path through the forest of leather. The wheel turns. The hive breathes. The bell, dark and patient in its tower, keeps its silence the way a shepherd keeps a field, knowing when the flock will need gathering again. And all the while, in the long, gentle measure of this night, the cobbles cool and the timbers rest, and breath by breath, every narrow lane and small room and attic and cellar listens to the rain, which tells the same story in 1,000 quiet ways, and then begins it again and again, and again, as though the town itself were an instrument tuned to the rhythm of water and stone. The rain threads its way into every crevice, between the shutters that do not quite close, along the grooves in the timber, across the sloped roofs where moss drinks deeply in silence. In lofts and under rafters, the drip becomes part of the night's chorus, a patient percussion beside the softer breaths of those who sleep. A lantern sways faintly in the wind where it hangs above the gate, its flame shivering but not giving way. Beneath it, a watchman walks the circuit of the wall, his boots muted. The rain-slick boards of the walkway. He pauses now and then, leaning on his pike, not out of weariness but to listen. To the night beyond, to the hush of the fields, to the far-off cry of an owl turning in the dark. His cloak gathers water at the hem until it drips steadily, yet he does not hurry. The night is long, and his steps belong to it. Within the town, dreams move as quietly as the watchman. A boy turns in his sleep and murmurs to himself, his hand clutching at the corner. As though holding a secret, an old woman sighs and shifts on her pallet, her body knowing the shape of the straw better than she does in waking. In a cellar, apples stored for winter release their slow fragrance into the damp, sweetening the air with memories of sunlight and orchard hum. Mice move unseen along beams and shadows, their small scurrying part of the same unbroken song. The river, swollen with rain, presses against its banks with a muted insistence, the wheel dipping and rising. Still, its paddles shining black in the half-light. The mill itself groans faintly, an old companion of the water, each creak and sigh blending with the endless murmur. Downstream, where reeds bend under the weight of drops, frogs croak lazily, their calls rounded and soft. like questions left unanswered. In the monastery orchard, the hives keep their steady hum beneath the rain-darkened cloths. Bees rest in the shelter of waxed walls, their collective breath a warmth that belongs to no single creature. The lay brother, rising once more in the night, crosses the grass barefoot to listen, his candle shielded by a hand. He does not disturb them. He stands only long enough to hear that pulse of life still moving within, then returns, steps slow, robe heavy with dew. The bell above all waits, suspended in stillness. Its rope hangs quiet in the tower, swaying just enough to remind the night that it could speak if it wished. Below, in the lanes, water gathers into rivulets, running to the square in silver threads. A cat pads carefully along the sill of a window, tail lifted, whiskers twitching at the scent of rain. Inside, the baker stirs faintly in his sleep, for even as the town dreams, morning draws itself closer, hidden within the night's long breathing. And so the hours move unseen, each one as gentle as a hand smoothing cloth, folding darkness into darkness, preparing the slow approach of another day. And so the hours drift onward, unmeasured, unbroken, of silk unfurling into the darkness. The town holds itself in this hush as though cradled by the rain, every corner softened, every sound muted, until the whole of it seems less a place of timber and stone than a dream suspended between breaths. The watchman continues his slow path along the wall. His lantern casts an amber glow across the slick boards. Each droplet it touches momentarily turned to gold before sliding away into the night. He listens not only for duty, but for the simple affirmation that the town still breathes. The muffled cough from a house near the gate, the creak of a shutter adjusting in the wind, the hollow thrum of water spilling from a gutter into a barrel below. These are his companions, as much a reassurance as any comrade at his side. Within the houses, slumber curls deeply into the marrow of the people. In one loft, a mother bends from her own rest to draw the blanket higher across her child's shoulder, a motion so practiced she barely stirs to do it. In another, a man dreams of ploughing fields, the slow, endless turning of the soil beneath his calloused hands, though his waking hours have known no plough for months, only the labor of carrying stones to mend the wall near the abbey. Dreams do not ask permission. They visit where they please. Below the cobbles, in cellars cool and damp, the breath of earth mingles with the sense of stored goods. Barrels of ale sit shoulder to shoulder, their hoops damp but firm. And in the corner, jars of honey glisten faintly when a mouse's eyes catch the lantern light slipping in from the cracks above. The honey has held summer within it, and even here in the depth of night, it seems to glow with remembered warmth. A sack of beans shifts with the faint movement of some unseen hand, perhaps rodent, perhaps only the settling of weight, and then all is still again, the silence so complete it feels as though the walls themselves are listening. The abbey, perched upon it, rise above the town, hums with a presence even in silence. Stone arches drip steadily from their edges, each drop resonant as though the building itself were speaking in a language too slow for people to follow. Within, the monks lie in their narrow beds, their breathing steady, their habits folded neatly at their sides. A single candle still burns in the scriptorium where one had worked too long to notice the creeping hour. Its light pools across unfinished letters, black ink against pay. Vellum, the line paused mid-curve where weariness stilled the hand. The wax bends under its own heat, dripping to the floor where it cools in soft layers, recording the night's patience. In the tavern, where earlier the murmur of voices filled the air, silence now reigns but for the settling timbers. A lone ember glows in the hearth, casting the faintest blush upon the flagstones. Tankards stand abandoned upon the tables, their rims damp with condensation, their contents long since finished. The lute rests against a stool, one string loosened from the night's plucking. A dog, let in from the rain, lies curled beside the hearth, sighing once before his breathing matches the rhythm of the ember's pulse. Out in the fields, beyond the protective ring of walls, rain slicks across furrows left waiting for the spring sowing. Pools gather between rows, reflecting fragments of moonlight when the clouds break. The scarecrow stands sentinel, his tunic plastered to his wooden frame, straw, dripping steadily from his sleeves. No birds trouble the fields tonight, even they seek the shelter of hedge and eave. The silence is so deep that the faint rustle of a fox slipping between hedgerows sounds louder than it should, though no one is there to hear it but the night itself. The river continues its endless work. Swollen with the gift of rain, it presses against the wheel, which groans and dips, as it has done for generations. The mill stands like a drowsy giant, soaked dark, stones breathing the coolness of the water's mist. Within, sacks lean against one another, their tops drawn shut, their contents dry and waiting for the labor of morning. Yet even now, in the depth of night, the mill never fully sleeps. The wheel's rhythm is the river's promise, a low heartbeat reminding the town that dawn will come, as it always does. At the orchard wall, the lay brother who checked the hives earlier sits once more. He has not gone back inside, but has found Saul. In the rain itself, his robe clings to him heavy, but he does not mind. The scent of wet earth and fruit surrounds him, grounding him in the moment more firmly than any psalm. The bees within the hives hum faintly, their warmth preserved behind wax walls, a reminder that life persists even in the stillest hours. He bows his head, not in prayer this time, but in simple gratitude for the ordinary miracle of rain falling on soil, of bees sleeping in hives, of townsfolk resting. In its tower looms above all of this, silent, immense, and patient. Its bronze face drinks the rain as it falls, a sheen that glimmers faintly when the clouds allow the moon a moment's passage. Though it does not sound, its weight is a presence felt throughout the town. It holds within it the authority of hours yet to come, as though time itself were coiled inside, waiting to be released with each strike. For now, though, it rests, allowing the night to breathe uninterrupted. And the rain goes on. It patters across shingles and slate, trickles down gutters, pools in the cracks between stones. It gathers at thresholds, slipping beneath doors in the thinnest lines, dampening straw mats and darkening the edges of thresholds. It fills the barrels set out to catch it. The sound of drops against wood a soft percussion that might lull a restless soul into sleep. It seeps into soil and into moss, into the hidden veins of the town itself, stitching everything together with its endless patience. Somewhere a child stirs and murmurs, half awake, half dreaming. She thinks she hears voices in the rain, a story told in words she cannot quite understand, but whose meaning she feels in her chest. That everything is safe, that everything is as it should be, that the night will cradle her until the light returns. She sinks back into sleep, her breath falling in rhythm with the rain's steady hymn. And so the night stretches on without hurry, without end, the cobbles cooling further, the timbers resting deeper, the river flowing on, the wheel turning, the hive breathing, the bell waiting, and the rain, always the rain, telling its story again, and again, and again, and again, until the night itself feels woven from the rain's endless fabric, each thread soaked in quiet, each knot tied with patience. The town lies wrapped in this cloth, every beam and cobble softened by its draping, every breath folded gently into the rhythm that never falters. On the outskirts, where the hedgerows meet the fields, the rain thickens into a soft curtain. Rabbits huddle in their burrows, paws tucked close, fur damp where it brushes the earth. A hedgehog noses its way under a tangle of leaves, seeking a pocket of dry soil, and even here the drops follow, tapping softly on the makeshift roof above. The night smells of wet bark, of roots, of moss releasing its ancient fragrance, a perfume so old and grounding that it seems to hold the memory of forests long gone. Walls, the watchman pauses at a narrow tower window. He leans against the stone sill, cloak clinging to him, and peers across the fields to where the river gleams like a restless serpent. He cannot see the far bank through the rain, only the restless shimmer of water and the occasional bending of reeds. Yet he is content with this view. The silence is not empty. It is filled with the sounds of life moving in ways too small to see, the steady persistence of the world breathing without notice. Adjusts the lantern, shielding its flame, and resumes his slow, endless walk, boots echoing against the slick timbers in time with the wheel below. In the smith's house, the dog turns in his sleep, paws twitching as though chasing something across a dream field. The hearth has burned low, but the stones still hold heat. A faint orange glow clings to the edges of a log that has all but surrendered to ash. The smith, stretched upon his cart, breathes evenly, one arm across his brow. His apprentice, curled in the corner on a rough blanket, snores softly, his dreams thick with sparks and steel, the sounds of hammer and anvil carried even into sleep. The apothecary, restless, stirs in his own bed above the shop. He wakes and lies still for a while, listening to the drops against the shutters, each one distinct, yet blending into a whole like beads sliding along a string. He rises quietly, so as not to wake the infant that sleeps in the house opposite, the one who... Chamomile and balm. He lights a small lamp, its flame flickering weakly, and goes to his shelves. His hand rests upon jars, moving slowly, not to choose but to reassure himself of their presence. Sage, comfrey, rosemary, mint, all waiting, all patient. He breathes in their mingled scent, closes his eyes, and for a moment feels as though the rain itself has entered his chest, soothing, cleansing, steadying. He sets the lamp aside and returns to bed, the rain's lullaby stronger. Restlessness. Down by the well, where the square meets the slope to the river, the last drops of water gathered earlier still cling to the stone rim. A frog has taken refuge in the hollow, its skin shining darkly, its throat pulsing with quiet croaks that answer the rain. No one stirs here now, no buckets creak, no ropes rasp. But the square is not empty of life. The puddles reflect faint flickers of lantern light from a distant window, quivering with each fresh ripple. A beetle. Surface, carried from stone to stone, a tiny ship on a boundless sea. In one attic chamber, a young boy wakes briefly, stirred by the sound of water dripping near his bed. He watches the droplets swell on the edge of a beam before it falls, striking a small wooden bowl he left on the floor. Plink. Another forms, another falls. Plink. He listens, mesmerized, until his eyelids droop once more. His last thought before sleep claims him is that the rain is counting the hours for him. Gentle number that will eventually add up to morning. And all the while, the river swells and sighs, its waters dark, its current patient but unrelenting. The wheel dips and rises, groaning faintly as though dreaming its own dreams. In the orchard, the hives hum softly, warmth gathered behind walls of wax while the brother sleeps now, robe still damp from his vigil. In the tavern, the embers dim further, their glow the last witness to stories told and laughter shared. In the abbey, the canned. In the scriptorium, gutters out at last, the ink drying mid-letter, the page waiting silently for morning hands. The bell does not stir, but its presence gathers strength in the silence. It holds the shape of hours not yet lived, of a dawn not yet risen, of lives not yet woken. And beneath it all, the rain continues, on shingles, on stones, on leaves, on wood, on river, on soil. It falls without haste, without end, carrying the town deeper into its embrace, until night. Indistinguishable, until the people dream not within their beds, but within the rain itself. The carbles cool further. The timbers sigh. The barrels rest. The apples breathe out their sweetness. The bread stiffens on its shelf. The rope lies coiled, the ink dries, the shoes wait, the cloth sleeps beneath its covering. And through it all, the rain tells its story, over and over, again and again, an endless tale of patience, of rest, of time slipping gently forward without ever disturbing the dream. And the night, long as it is, seems to stretch still further, as though time itself has given way to the steady rhythm of the rain. Each drop folds into another, until hours lose their edges and moments drift into one another like ripples spreading across a pond. The town does not resist this slowness. It leans into it, sinking deeper into the softness of sleep, allowing the rain to cradle it whole. Along the watchman's path, the lantern sways with his careful steps. The flame trembles, endures, painting his face in warm flashes against the dark. His cloak, soaked through, releases a steady trickle that patters onto the planks beneath his boots, joining the endless chorus. He pauses now and then, not from fatigue but from reverence. Each pause is a prayer unspoken, his gaze stretching outward over the darkened fields where hedgerows blur and the river threads its silver body across the land. Far away, a fox barks once, sharp and lonely, before vanishing again. Shroud! He lifts his lantern, nodding to the sound, as if to acknowledge that he too is awake, that the night is shared between them. In the heart of the town, a small cottage sits crookedly at the edge of the square, its timbers bowed from centuries of weather. Within, an old woman stirs from her bed, not out of restlessness but habit. Her bones ache with the shift of dampness in the air, yet she does not complain. She wraps herself in a shawl and sits at the hearth, stirring the embers until a low flame stirs back to life. From a pot near the wall, she ladles a little broth into a cup, its steam curling gently into the chill room. She sips slowly, listening to the rain. For her, each drop is a memory. The rhythm of her father's scythe in the field, the creak of her husband's cart, the laughter of children grown long ago. She does not sleep again, but she does not mind. The night, with all its patience, keeps her company. Across the square in the baker's loft, the girl. Flower on the sill earlier dreams of shapes she cannot name. The scent of bread still clings faintly to her hair, sweet and yeasty, mingling with the smell of damp timber around her. She turns in her sleep, and one hand brushes the rough wall. Beneath her, in the bakery itself, the dough set aside for morning rests in silence, yeast working slowly, invisibly, as if it too dreams. The faint rise and swell of each loaf mirrors the slow rise of the girl's chest as she sleeps, both rhythm. Force is older than memory. The river carries on, swollen and restless, but not angry. It glides past the mill, its current whispering against stone and wheel, lifting spray that glitters faintly when the moon escapes the clouds. The wheel turns, patient old, never ceasing. Within the mill, the sacks of grain rest as though asleep, leaning against one another like weary travelers. The miller, in his own bed, dreams not of toil but of sunlight filtering through the orchard leaves, of bees, humming, of cider poured on autumn afternoons. The river, indifferent but not unkind, keeps his dreams afloat with its endless lullaby. Beyond the fields, in the forest that fringes the land, the rain falls heavier. Branches bow beneath its weight, leaves shiver with each drop, and roots drink deeply from the gift. Animals retreat deeper into burrows, hollows, and nests. A stag, antlers heavy with water, stands for a time at the forest edge, nostrils flaring. He lifts his head, catching scents of wet soil, smoke from the distant town, and something else, an ancient stillness that the rain carries. Then slowly he moves on, hooves muffled in the softened earth, vanishing between trees as though absorbed by them. The abbey above the town breathes in its own rhythm. Its stones are slick with rain, the mortar dark, the gargoyles glistening as if alive. Inside, silence reigns but for the faint drip of water from the arches. The monks, wrapped in slumber, do not stir. Only the candle left in the scriptorium flickered, then died, leaving ink half dry upon the page. The quill rests across it, a tiny bridge between thought and parchment. Even unfinished, the words seem complete, for the silence of the abbey adds its own punctuation, its own meaning. In the tavern, the embers fade further, their glow now no more than a faint pulse. Shadows lengthen and merge across the walls, the tables, the floor. The dog beside the hearth shifts, sighs, and curls tighter, his dreams carrying him across fields of scent and sound. Outside, rain collects along the eaves, dripping steadily into the trough below, filling it drop by drop until it overflows, the water running off into the street with a sound like whispered laughter. In cellars and lofts, stored goods hold their vigil. Apples breathe out sweetness, cheese rests under its cloth, barrels keep their secrets. A mouse ventures across the floor, nose twitching, paws light. It pauses, listens to the rain, then continues on, its tiny presence adding to the night's quiet symphony. Nothing stirs too loudly, nothing interrupts. Everything belongs to the same rhythm. At the well, rainwater gathers slowly, the stones slick, the rope damp where it rests against the rim. A frog shifts again in its hollow, its throat pulsing with soft croaks that echo faintly across the square. A beetle continues its aimless drifting on the surface of a puddle, its body carried wherever the ripples will. Above, the silent bell hangs, immense and patient, its rope waiting, its bronze face drinking the rain. And still the rain falls. It soaks the fields, fills the gutters, trickles along the cobbles, slips beneath doorways to dampen straw mats. It paints every roof dark, deepens every shadow, and fills the night with its endless, unhurried music. It tells the same story over and over, and yet it never grows tiresome. It is the story of life continuing, of rest being kept, of hours unfold. Endlessly, in beds across the town, people dream of their own stories. A child dreams of boats set afloat in streams. A woman dreams of herbs growing tall and fragrant. A man dreams of paths through fields, of voices long gone. All these dreams weave themselves together, bound by the rain's patient song. They drift across the town like smoke, soft and fleeting, but together they form a tapestry that covers every roof, every lane, every heart. And as the hours slip deeper into cobbles cool further, the timbers sigh more deeply. The wheel dips and rises, the hive breathes, the bell waits, and the rain, always the rain, continues, telling its story in 1,000 ways, beginning again and again and again and again, until even the notion of time seems to dissolve, washed gently away by the rain's endless cadence. The night stretches wide and deep, and though the hours move forward, they do so without edges, without sharpness, without interruption. Only the of existence, each detail folding into the next. The watchman circles once more upon the wall, his lantern now weaker, its oil thinning, its flame dim but stubborn. The boards beneath his feet glisten, reflecting faint shivers of light with every step. He adjusts his cloak, though the rain has already soaked it through, and pauses at the tower's corner to rest his hand against the stone. From here, he can see the faint outline of the orchard, the darker line of forest, the pale river bending through the land. All of it lies softened under the veil of rain. He closes his eyes for a moment and breathes it in, letting the damp air fill his lungs, letting the stillness settle into his bones. When he opens them again, nothing has changed, and yet everything feels renewed, as though the rain itself has whispered strength into him. Below, the square lies hushed. The market stalls, now covered with cloth, sag slightly beneath the weight of water pooling on their surfaces. A bucket left behind collects the steady patter of droplets, the sound echoing faintly off stone walls. A shutter bangs softly in the wind, then settles, creaking once before falling still. The frog at the well shifts again, throat pulsing, sending its small voice out into the night. It is not answered, but neither is it alone. The rain itself carries the sound away, spreading it across rooftops, gutters, and fields, blending it into the greater song. In the baker's loft, the girl stirs. Half awake, the scent of bread mingling with the smell of rain. She listens for a moment to the dripping of water against the sill, and then drifts back into sleep, her dreams filled with warmth and the memory of sunlight on flour. Below her, the dough rises still, slowly, invisibly, preparing for the dawn. The bakery itself seems to breathe, the air rich with yeast and wood smoke, as though the building shares in the town's slumber. In the apothecary's shop, the jars of herbs stand in perfect stillness. A sprig of lavender, left drying near the hearth, stirs faintly with the draught. The apothecary, now asleep, dreams of distant fields where such herbs grow wild. Lavender spreading across hills, chamomile bending in the breeze, mint thriving near riverbanks. His dream is bright, yet calm, filled not with the weight of duty, but with the quiet joy of abundance. The rain outside mirrors his dream, watering unseen seeds in soil, coaxing growth from the hidden heart of the earth. Above the town seems carved more deeply into the night now. Its stones, dark and dripping, gleam faintly whenever the clouds part. Within, silence deepens further, wrapping the monks in stillness. One of them, restless, wakes briefly and kneels beside his bed, murmuring a prayer so quiet that even he can barely hear it. He does not finish it, for the rhythm of the rain answers on his behalf, steady and unbroken. He smiles faintly, lies down again, and is soon lost to sleep once. Tavern, the embers finally give out, leaving only faint warmth in the hearthstones. The dog stirs, lifts his head, and listens to the rain. His ears twitch at the sound, and for a moment he seems to remember something from his younger days. Running through fields, paws splashing through puddles, the scent of wet grass filling his nose. He lays his head down again, sighing, the memory fading into a dream as the rain lulls him back into rest. The river swells further, its current heavy but unhurried. Driftwood floats past the mill, branches turning slowly, caught in eddies before being carried onward. The wheel turns and groans, its paddles gleaming darkly in the rain. The mill itself creaks faintly in reply, a conversation between water and wood that has been going on for generations. The sound carries across the fields, softened by distance, blending with the rain until it becomes only another layer of the night's endless music. Beyond the walls, the forest drinks deep. Stretched downward, pulling water into their hidden veins, trunks darkened by the rain's touch. A stag pauses once more at the edge of the trees, his breath misting faintly in the air. He tilts his head, listening. The rain patters across his antlers, drips from his muzzle, darkens the earth beneath his hooves. For a long moment he stands there, a living statue in the storm, then turns and disappears into the shadows, leaving only the sound of water where he once stood. The bell in its tower waits still, patient as stone. It drinks the rain upon its bronze face, its rope sways faintly in the draught, but no sound issues forth. Yet its silence is not empty. It is a silence full of promise, the promise of hours yet to come, of dawn's eventual arrival. The town does not need its voice now. The rain speaks loudly enough, endlessly enough. The bell simply waits, as it always does, for the right moment. And through it all the rain continues. It drips from eaves, pools, along cobbles, seeps into earth, gathers in barrels, falls upon roofs, strikes leaves, slides down beams. It tells its story again and again, without pause, without hurry, without end. It carries the town deeper into itself, wrapping every dream, every breath, every corner in its quiet rhythm. The cobbles cool, the timbers sigh, the barrels rest, the apples breathe, the dough swells, the ink dries, the rope lies still, the shoes wait, the cloth sleeps, the hive hums softly, the wheel turns. Bell waits, and the rain, always the rain, falls, unceasing, unending, telling its story once more, beginning again and again and again, and again, as though the night itself were made only of breath and rain, woven together into a single unbroken cloth. Every corner of the town, every roof, every stone, every window belongs now to the hush, to the patience, to the endless murmuring of water. Nothing hurries, nothing ends. Everything rests, and in that rest, everything continues. The watchman, lantern dimming with the thinning oil, pauses once more along his path atop the wall. His shoulders sag with the weight of dampness, but not with weariness. He leans against the rough stone and listens. Beyond the fields, the forest is a darker shadow against the already black horizon, its trees trembling under the steady fall. The river gleams faintly in the distance, its swollen body shifting and sighing as though it too is caught in a dream. The watchman lifts his face toward them. Sky, eyes closed, letting the rain touch him as it touches the roofs and cobbles, equal in its gift. For a moment he feels himself dissolve into it, no longer a man standing guard, but only another part of the night's vast and quiet body. Beneath him, the square lies still. The puddles grow deeper between the cobbles, their surfaces broken only by the concentric rings of raindrops. The stalls, cloaked in damp canvas, slump inward under the weight of water, their colors me. And black. The frog at the well calls again, its voice softer now, blending with the thousand small patters of drops against stone. A beetle drifts in the water's reflection of lantern light, its tiny form carried this way and that, until it finds rest against the curve of a cobble. The sound of rain on canvas, on stone, on wood, weaves together into a single fabric of sound, so steady it seems eternal. In the baker's loft, the girl dreams of sunlight and the golden crust of loaves. The oven, though she has known only the smell of dough tonight, her hand twitches in sleep, as if shaping bread even in her dreams. Below her, the bakery itself breathes warmth into the night, the oven's stone still faintly alive from the day's fire. The dough rests, rising invisibly, guided by the same patient forces that shape the night itself. Across the square, the apothecary stirs in his sleep. His dreams are rich with gardens, though in truth his shelves hold only dried herbs. He walks in his dream through rows of lavender, mint, sage, and rosemary, the scents heavy and sweet, the air warm with sun. Bees move among the blossoms, and he feels the hum in his bones. Yet even as he dreams, the rain outside mirrors the work of his mind, watering, feeding, coaxing life from hidden places. His breath deepens, his hands unclench, and he rests once more. In the abbey above the town, silence reigns. The monks lie unmoving, their breath steady, their faces serene. In the scriptorium has died completely, leaving the quill lying across the unfinished word. Yet in the stillness, the abbey seems alive. The stone walls drip faintly, each drop echoing as though the building itself were breathing. The silence is not empty. It is full, saturated with the weight of prayer, with the memory of voices lifted together, with the promise of voices yet to come when dawn arrives. The tavern has given itself entirely to shadow. The embers are cold now, nothing but pale ash. In the grate, the dog lifts its head once, ears twitching at the rain, then settles again, curling tighter into the straw. The scent of ale, of smoke, of spilled wine still clings faintly to the air, but it is softened now, blurred by the dampness that creeps in through the shutters. The tables and benches stand silent, their wood swollen with moisture, their surfaces waiting for the return of voices and laughter. For now they rest, like the town itself, like the night itself. The river continues its endless labor, swollen with the night's gift. It presses against its banks, laps against stones, carries branches and leaves downstream. The mill wheel turns with a slow, heavy groan, its paddles glistening black under the rain. The sacks of grain within the mill wait, leaning one against the other like tired men, their contents dry and patient. The miller, asleep in his bed, dreams of orchards and cider, of bees and honey, of sunlight. The river holds his dream for him. It onward, unbroken as it carries everything. The forest beyond the fields drinks deeply. Its trunks are dark with water, its leaves glisten faintly when the clouds part and the moon glances through. Roots swell with the gift, Mushrooms rise unseen in the damp undergrowth, and the soil exhales a fragrance of earth older than memory. A stag moves quietly between the trees, his antlers dripping, his breath steaming faintly. He pauses, listening, then moves on, his steps silent on the earth. The rain follows him, touches him, wraps him as it wraps everything. The bell waits still in its tower, silent, immense, eternal. It drinks the rain, its bronze face glistening faintly in the dark. Its rope sways once in the draught, then hangs still again. It does not speak, but its silence is not void. It is filled with the weight of hours, of time held patiently until the moment it is needed. The town does not need its voice now. The rain speaks loudly enough, endlessly enough. The rests as everything rests within the embrace of night. And through it all, the rain continues. It falls on roofs, on cobbles, on beams, on barrels. It trickles into gutters, pools in alleys, seeps into soil, gathers in wells. It softens every sound, blurs every edge, carries every breath into the same endless rhythm. It tells its story again and again, without pause, without end, and the town listens, and the town sleeps, and the town dreams. The cobbles cool, the timbers sigh. The barra rest, the apples breathe, the dough swells, the ink dries, the rope lies still, the shoes wait, the cloth sleeps, the hive hums faintly, the wheel turns, the bell waits, and the rain, always the rain, falls steady and endless, carrying the night deeper into itself, telling its story once more, beginning again and again and again and again, until the rain itself seems to weave into the dreams of those who sleep. A child murmurs in her bed, whispering words that make no sense to waking, but are clear enough in the language of sleep. Her breath fogs the air for a moment, then fades into the darkness, just as the mist outside clings to the cobbles and dissolves. The house creaks faintly with the shifting of wood swollen by damp, each groan like the sigh of something ancient and patient, settling deeper into the night. In a cellar, barrels press together with the quiet weight of years, hoops damp, wood fragrant with ale and grain. A single droplet works its way along the sea and falls upon a cask, darkening the surface with a mark no larger than a fingertip. The smell of apples stored nearby is richer here, sharp and sweet at once, carrying the memory of autumn into the damp heart of winter's night. The blacksmith's dog stirs, paws twitching, chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. The apprentice dreams of sparks flying, iron singing, the heat of the forge that has gone quiet now. The smith himself breathes steadily, his body heavy with the day's labor, his still curled slightly as if around a hammer. Even in rest, the work clings to him, though in dreams it softens, reshaped into rhythms of firelight and warmth. Down by the river, the mill wheel groans and turns, its paddles dripping silver arcs into the swollen current. The river moves with a low, endless voice, a hymn that has no beginning and no end. A branch caught in the water turns slowly, nudged this way and that, carried along until it disappears around the bend. Mist rises where water strikes stone, a ghostly veil that drifts across the mill's walls. Inside, the sacks of grain lean, breathing out their faint, dusty scent, companions to the night as much as any man on watch. The abbey stones gleam with rain, every carving softened by the wet sheen. Inside, silence is complete save for the faint drip of water from the arches, each drop echoing like a bell struck gently by time itself. The monks sleep, their bodies still beneath rough blankets, their breaths turns slightly, adjusting against the chill, then stills again. The scriptorium lies in shadow, the quill across the page, ink dried mid-curve, candle long gone to smoke. Yet the unfinished word feels whole in its waiting, as though time itself will complete it come morning. In the tavern, the shadows have thickened. The tables glisten faintly where the damp has crept in, the benches swollen with moisture, the air heavy with silence. The dog at the hearth breathes evenly, chest rising and falling in time with the faint dripping from the eaves outside. The smell of ash, wine, and wet wood lingers in the air, softened now into something almost sweet. A moth clings stubbornly to the wall near the hearth, its wings still, as if it too waits for dawn. In the orchard, trees stand dark against the rain, their branches bending beneath the weight. Apples that had fallen earlier lie slick on the earth, their skins bruised but still fragrant, sweetening the air with a faint perfume. The hives hum faintly, bees gathered tight within their waxen walls, their warmth preserved against the night. The brother who tends them sleeps now, his robe still damp at its hem, but his dreams are filled with the same quiet patience he found there among the hives. The bell waits, immense in its tower, silent, steady, its bronze face slick with water. It does not stir, yet its presence fills the night, reminding the town that time endures even when unmeasured. Its silence is weighty, filled with the promise of hours not yet come, with the memory of hours already past. And always the rain continues. It falls upon roof and cobble, upon field and river, upon wall and wood. It gathers in gutters, pools in the square, slides down beams, seeps into soil. It tells the same story over and over, a story without end, a story that belongs to the night and to the town, to every dream and every breath. The cobbles cool, the timbers sigh, the barrels rest, the apples breathe. Swells, the ink dries, the rope lies still, the shoes wait, the cloth sleeps, the hive hums, the wheel turns, the bell waits, and the rain, always the rain, goes on unbroken, unending, beginning again and again and again, and again as the night deepens, as though it has no bottom, no edge, only the ceaseless fall of rain. The town lies wrapped in that endless rhythm, roofs bowed, timbers breathing, stones dark and slick. Each drop stitches the hours together until time itself is counted but simply felt, a long, slow current carrying everything forward without notice. The watchman's lantern sputters, its flames small and weary, but still it burns. He walks the path along the wall with the steady patience of one who knows that his task is less to see than to endure. Each step is softened by the damp wood, the boards groaning faintly beneath his boots. Now and again he pauses, lifting his face into the rain, eyes closed, feeling it soak his brow, his cheeks, is the same rain that touches the roofs, the fields, the forest, the river. It makes no distinction, and in that impartiality there is a comfort. He draws a slow breath, the scent of wet stone and earth filling him, and moves on, lantern swinging, flame trembling but alive. Beneath the walls, in the crooked lanes, the night pools like water in a basin. Houses lean toward one another, their upper stories dripping with the weight of the storm. Shutters rattle softly, their iron hinges slick and black. In one narrow alley, a gutter overflows, spilling a thin stream that trickles down the cobbles and gathers in a hollow where a child's wooden hoop lies forgotten. The water pushes it gently, turning it, nudging it along until it rests against the corner of a step. The rain is patient. By morning it may move again. In a cottage near the edge of the square, a man dreams fitfully. His body remembers labor, even in sleep. His arms twitch as though lifting a burden. His legs shift, striding up a hill, yet his face is peaceful. His wife beside him lies still, her breath even, her hair damp with the night's heaviness. Their child sleeps between them, a small hand resting on each of theirs, binding them together even in dreams. The rain outside drums steadily on the roof, a lullaby older than any voice, and slowly the man's restless movements subside. His body slackens, his breath evens, and the three of them drift deeper into the vast silence. The baker's with warmth, the girl murmurs in her sleep, her lips forming words she will not remember. Below her, the dough rises quietly in the dark, guided by invisible hands of yeast and time. The oven, though cool, still holds the ghost of the day's fire. Its stones radiate the faintest breath of heat, enough to keep the air rich with the scent of flour and wood smoke. Mice scurry across the floor, their tiny claws whispering against the boards, pausing to sniff at crumbs left behind. They van. Cracks as quickly as they appeared, their movements another layer in the night's endless weaving. The apothecary, wrapped in his blanket, shifts once more. His dreams carry him to fields of herbs, rows upon rows, the air alive with fragrance. He kneels in the soil, gathering sprigs of thyme, leaves of sage, blossoms of chamomile. Bees hum lazily around him, their bodies golden with dust. In the dream, the sun is high, the air is warm, and the earth is generous. Yet even here in dream, the rain, a soft patter on leaves, a gentle percussion that follows him always. He accepts it, smiles faintly in his sleep, and continues his gathering. The abbey above the town is a shadow against the rain-washed sky. Its tower rises steady, its roof gleams wet, its carving softened by water. Inside, the monks rest in their narrow beds, their breaths a quiet chorus in the dark. The scriptorium lies empty, the quill across the page, the ink dried mid-word. The silence is vast. It is filled with the weight of prayer, with the memory of voices, with the certainty that dawn will come. Even unfinished words wait patiently here, knowing that nothing is lost in the endless rhythm of time. The tavern is hushed. Ash lies pale in the hearth, the last ember gone cold. The dog shifts once, sighs, then sleeps again, his body curled tightly, his tail over his nose. The air smells of damp wood, of wine soaked into the tables, of smoke clinging faintly to the beams. Shadows gather. Thickly in the corners, softened only by the faint glimmer of rain-slick light seeping through cracks in the shutters. A moth clings stubbornly to the wall, wings still, waiting. Even in silence, the tavern feels alive, its timbers heavy with memory, its air saturated with the residue of laughter, of voices, of songs sung hours ago. The river groans and sighs as it swells, its current carrying branches, leaves, fragments of earth. The mill wheel dips and rises, paddles shining darkly, water dripping from their edges in silver threads. The wheel groans, but steadily, faithfully, turning as it has always turned. Inside, the sacks of grain lean into one another, their contents quiet, their scent earthy and faintly sweet. The miller dreams in his bed, his hands twitching as though still working, though in his mind he walks through orchards, through fields, through the golden haze of autumn. The river carries his dream onward, folding it into its endless murmur. In the forest, the rain falls heavier, soaking leaves, bending branches. Roots drink deeply, mushrooms swell unseen, ferns shiver under the weight. The stag moves quietly between the trees, his antlers dripping, his breath clouding in the air. He pauses, listening, then lowers his head to graze at the wet earth. The rain beads along his coat, darkening it, making it shine faintly in the half-light. When he moves on, his steps are silent, his presence swallowed quickly by the shadows of the wood. The bell in its tower waits, its bronze face is slick with rain, glistening faintly when the clouds part to reveal the moon. Its rope hangs still, swaying once in a draught, then settling again. It does not strike, but its silence is heavy, full of promise. It holds within it the weight of hours, the certainty of dawn, the memory of countless nights like this one. It is patient, as all things in the town are patient, waiting for the right moment, the right breath of time. And through it all, the rain continues. It falls on shingles, on beams, on cobbles, on fields, on trees, on river. It gathers in barrels, pools in gutters, runs along alleys, seeps into soil. It softens the night, blurs its edges, carries everything deeper into its embrace. It tells its story again and again, without end, without haste, without pause. The cobbles cool, the timbers sigh, the barrels rest, the apples breathe, the dough swells, the ink dries, the rope lies still, the shoes wait, the cloth sleeps, the hive hums fain. Wheel turns, the bell waits, and the rain, always the rain, goes on, steady, patient, endless, beginning again and again and again.